Question number 3, Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Has he had any meetings with his housing ministers regarding how the housing crisis is affecting children?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I disagree with the member that there is a housing crisis, but of course housing is a key area of focus for this government, and I have a number of meetings with ministers on housing and how it affects New Zealanders and their families. That's why the government has a comprehensive housing plan to address the issue of rising house prices.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Before he gets on his high horse,
Order.
Why has the number of homeless families...
Can we just ask the member to start the question?
Yes, fair enough, Mr Speaker. Why has the number of homeless families with kids surged by 44% on his watch?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I need to check the validity of the member's number. What I can say, though, is the government is moving more people into social housing more rapidly than we've seen for a long period of time. We're providing nearly $2 billion in housing support and accommodation supplements. And I'm pleased to say, actually, on a sort of somewhat related issue, we've insulated nearly 300,000 homes across New Zealand.
Point of order, Andrew Little.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave to table a parliamentary library report showing a 44% increase in the number of homeless families with dependent children.
Leave is sought to table that information for the parliamentary library. Is there any objection? There is no objection. It can be tabled.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Given that his government has reduced the number of state houses available by more than 2,500, does he take responsibility for the fact that there are now 10,000 homeless kids in New Zealand?
The
Speaker.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I think the member is quite incorrect on both of the parts of his question.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
What does he say to Jan Tinetti, principal of Merivale School in Tauranga, who says of her kids, "Some are dead in the eyes, they have no emotion at all. This is happening on a daily basis at my school. I dread families telling me they have no housing. There is just no housing left. I feel hopeless. Mums are in my office in absolute tears because they don't know what to do."
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, what the government has been doing for the most vulnerable New Zealanders in that area is making sure that they get the support that they need, and that includes the additional $50-odd million that we put into the budget. We're seeing more people moving on to social housing, about 150 extra a week, Mr Speaker. But of course, if the person that the member mentions doesn't have a house to live in, then I suggest that in the first instance they go to work and income, and work and income will be providing them support.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
When he gives advice to the people that Jan Tinetti was talking about to go to WINS, what does he say to those who have gone to WINS and 217 days later are still waiting to be placed in suitable housing?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, that's the very point, isn't it? That when people go in to see work and income, if they register, for instance, that they're in the most vulnerable living conditions, a house or a tent, what in fact happens is work and income do move them into a form of accommodation. It could be a motel, it could be some other form of accommodation. It depends on their circumstances. But then ultimately over time they get to a permanent residence, and that's happening more quickly. So in fact, that's the very point. By going into work and income, they do get the support.
Supplement. Order. Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Why did he vote last week to protect offshore property speculators while children in this country are sleeping in cars and garages?
Why did that member vote?
The Right Honourable
Speaker.
Prime Minister.
I think members making it up.
Supplementary.
Order. Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
With Paula Bennett admitting there's a homelessness crisis and Nick Smith finally conceding he's lost control of the Auckland housing market, why won't he just adopt Labor's comprehensive housing plan that will see 100,000 houses being built, 1,000 state houses being built, and 5,000 more places for emergency housing each year?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes, we may as well adopt Labor's housing plan. We can also adopt Labor's internal polling. And by the way, we'll be living in Fairyland, Pixieland or Disneyland, I don't know which, but you can choose.
Order. Question. Order.